I just sent a
Yep,
request there.
there you go.
Okay. And here we go. Okay, so again, welcome. These meetings, as you may know, will be once a month on the last Wednesday, starting today and ending in June 2026. We do have that plotted out in a calendar, but there's a couple dates we might need to adjust once the Community Advisory Board sort of gels and we've got our participants will put that out. Any dates that need to be shifted, we'll get some feedback from everyone about dates that conflict with holidays and things like that. So first, I also want to say thank you to all of the partners that have made this project happen. The part that the Community Advisory Board is working on, which is the carrot, is embedded within this larger Building a Climate Resilient Food System in Plymouth County, which is the MVP project run by the Old Colony Planning Council in partnership with Plymouth County and us, the Marion Institute. One of the first things I'm going to do, and not sure if anyone has any difficulty with this, just let me know because I can share my screen, I think even more and show you how I'm doing it. But if everyone could change their name to first and last name and the organization you're with, that will help us get an idea of who is here. So I've just changed mine so you can see Rita Higgins, Marion Institute. Quickly, our agenda. So welcome and introductions. I'll introduce each of the partners that are here. We'll do a project overview. We'll discuss the carrot tool and the Community Advisory Board, the roles and the meeting guidelines. And then we will begin with our first theme in the carrot and working through the indicators together. That will all, if you didn't make it to the kickoff meeting, all of this is going to make more sense once we finish the next few slides. So I'm going to start with introductions, and I'm going to start with our team. Myself, Rita Higgins with the Marion Institute, and I'll be facilitating the carrot work that we're doing. And then I've got Tess Washburn, who is our carrot research assistant. And we've got Liz Wiley, our executive director at the Marion Institute, and I'll let her pop on there and give a quick intro.
Did you just introduce me?
I did, yeah.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
And am I?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're on mute, Liz.
Okay, you should be able to hear me now. All right, this is perfect timing. I just landed at the next spot that we needed to. We're doing farm visits today. So I'm going to only be popping on here for the introductions, and then I'm going to leave you guys in the very capable hands of my two teammates, Rita and Tess, who will introduce herself after me. But just really thrilled to be doing this project with all of you. The Marion Institute's a nonprofit located in Marion, Mass. We've been around for 31 years now, and we're very focused on promoting health equity and advancing health equity through the lens of nutrition security. And we do that through our 4 core programs, one of which is the South Coast Food Policy Council. And it's this work through the Food Policy Council that we are working with the surrounding counties to work on this carrot project that you're going to learn all about through these next 9 months or so, whatever it comes down to. But the goal for us, there's the goal for OCPC and part of the MVP and how this is factoring into that. And then just to sort of give a broader view of how we're using this data, we've already conducted the carrot with our South Coast Food Policy Community Advisory Board. And now we've been in the process of working with all the surrounding counties to create county CABs, community advisory boards in your counties. And these are community advisory boards are made up of multi-sector stakeholders doing this sort of social infrastructure asset mapping as Rita was explaining. Our hope is to then use the data to factor that into a larger food system assessment that will encompass the entire Southeastern Mass food shed. With the goal of then all of us being able to work more collaboratively together on how we really are re-regionalizing, localizing our food system. So I thank you all for being a part of this. I look forward to working with all of you. And if there's ever any questions or thoughts, or you want to meet one-on-one with us, at the Marian Institute, you'll have all of our contact information. And we just look forward to building this partnership with all of you through the work with Joanne and Frank. So thank you.
Thanks, Liz. And what I might do as well, Tess, if you could just use the Zoom to raise your hand so people can see who you are, so you know who the Marian team is here. And then we've got Frank Basler from Plymouth County. Frank, if you could raise your hand so people can see you there. And then we've got Joanne Zygmunt and Bill Napolitano from Old Colony Planning Council. So that's our project team, and we're just going to, again, if you can, change your Zoom screen name to first and last name. We are going to be, and your organization, we are going to be together as a community advisory board over next 9 to 12 months. And the way these meetings are set up is where they're not mandatory, but to the extent that people can participate in as many meetings as possible, it allows us to get a deeper understanding of this sort of collective knowledge. And we will look for ways to make sure that people can connect and network and understand who is on these meetings. For this meeting, we're going to just ask people as well, in addition to put your name and your organization and your role or roles in the food system into the chat. This is a not fun icebreaker. We'll get more fun icebreakers going for future meetings, but just to start to get an idea and get thinking about our roles in the food system and get into the food system mode, I've included here this image of the food system. And if everyone has a look and see if you can kind of find your primary role within the food system. When we're building these community advisory boards, we're really looking to touch on each of these different elements. This image is from the 2021 food system assessment that the Marian Institute did for Southeastern Mass, which you can find on our website. And it gives a really good visual of all the different elements that are touching our food system and that are captured within the carrot. So if you can pop those into the chat, that would be fantastic. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Joanne to just give that high-level overview of the MVP project and how the carrot fits into this.
Thanks, Rita. Hi, folks. So Old Colony Planning Council, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is the regional planning agency for the greater Brockton and Plymouth areas. We work with our communities on a whole wide variety of planning projects, ranging from open space planning all the way through to bylaw reviews and revisions related to housing and transportation and all kinds of other community issues. We applied to the state for the MVP grant in order to enable us to lead this project in partnership with Plymouth County and the Marian Institute. Working with our partners, the project area is not just Old Colony's region. We serve 17 municipalities, but it's more broadly the Plymouth County area. So I think that's about 30 or 32 odd communities that we're working with. The project is pretty complicated. I encourage you all to visit oldcolonyplanning.org/food resiliency to learn more about the project and its details. We'll pop that into the chat in a few minutes. But essentially what we're looking to do at the end of the next year is produce a food action plan that's going to give us the next steps over the coming roughly 10 years or so to help make our food system in Plymouth County more resilient. And when we talk about resiliency, we mean environmentally, we mean socially, we mean economically, in terms of climate and other risks that exist within the food system, future pandemics, resiliency across the board. We are using this carrot tool and the process that Marian Institute is facilitating to feed into the development of that action plan. And we're also going to be hiring consultants to do more in-depth work looking at the physical infrastructure that's in our region and the economic resiliency related to the food system. Our steering committee, which met earlier today, is more focused on that aspect of the work. So if you're interested in participating in the review of that other side of this project, feel free to reach out and we'll give you information about that as well too. But essentially the carrot tool and those consultants and their more kind of in-depth work on certain specific features of the food system will all feed into this action plan that we hope we'll be able to implement with the help of you all over the coming years.
Great, thank you, Joanne. So the carrot tool. This is the reason the Community Advisory Board is here together. CARROT stands for Community and Agriculture Resilience Audit Tool. And it is a collaborative, participatory assessment platform that really brings together community stakeholders to do a self-assessment of their local food system. The main goal of conducting a CARROT assessment is identifying the resources in your community that are contributing to a strong, resilient local food system, both during an emergency and in the long term. The CARROT is broken into 7 themes, which you can see here on the screen. The one in bold is the one we're going to be looking at today. And within those 7 themes, there are 101 signs or measures of resiliency that are called indicators. The indicators, so this is an example here on the right of what some of these indicators look like and sound like. They help us identify gaps and opportunities in the food system, help us understand what are the next steps that we could take to make Plymouth County stronger and have a more resilient food system and have more food sovereignty or control of what we eat, who's growing it, where it's grown. Once all the indicators have been answered, the Community Advisory Board will be scoring. So the scoring for the CARROT tool ranges from 0 to 3. And 0 is looking at, if we look back at the indicator before, are there any policies, programs, or projects to protect farmland? And once we've done all the research, we've pulled all of this collective knowledge that we have from the Community Advisory Board, we've done any background research that we need to do to try and fully answer this to the best extent we can, we'll come back together, look at the results, and give it one of these scores, ranging from no, it's not even being discussed or considered, to it's being implemented. There is a funded program, policy, or practice that is in place with resources, and it's having results already. There are nuances to the scoring. This isn't meant to be a simple yes or no activity. It's intended to be a qualitative assessment of how well our current food system is reflecting these 7 major themes that are indicators of resilience. The score will give us this baseline metric for resiliency that we can then come back to over time. One of the goals of the Marion Institute more broadly with this project as well is to understand how this can be a tool that can be more alive. I know that's a goal of the broader project, the broader MVP project, is how do we make sure that this isn't just a piece of paper on a shelf or in a Google Drive? How do we make this something that can be updated regularly? So it's a baseline metric, and the intention will be to come back in 3 years or 5 years, but it's also something that can be used along the way. Another thing that this allows us to do is to create this shared language that will allow municipalities and stakeholders across counties to collaborate on food system projects, knowing that our food system and our food shed doesn't stop at the county boundaries. This Community Advisory Board is the board, the committee that will be running through all of the 101 indicators. Each of the meetings will cover one of the themes, and we hope to, with the hour and a half that we've allocated for each meeting, we really think that we'll be able to get through each theme in a meeting. Some will be within an hour easily, and some will probably hit the 1.5 hour mark. But the purpose of this Community Advisory Board is to work through each of the 101 indicators, identify the resources that we have in Plymouth County, or identify who are the sources of information if we don't know about resources that are available. The Community Advisory Board is composed of as diverse a cross-section of county, local, and state stakeholders as possible. And again, going back to that original image, we're not just looking for the sort of the core food system stakeholders. We want the, the policy pieces, the government pieces, the environment pieces. We want everyone at the table. And that's going to be something that we can do during this meeting, after this meeting, and the next meeting, is to continually look at who is on our board and who's not at our board. We really want to have as many Plymouth County voices on this board as possible to contribute. We will be doing focus groups and interviews as well, so that if we're not capturing those voices on this regularly meeting board, we'll make sure that they are included in the broader project. And then your role as a member of the Community Advisory Board is simply to share your knowledge and your insights related to each of the indicators. And we also recognize that for some of the indicators, you might not have any knowledge, and that's fine. We're not going to expect that everyone answers every indicator. But we do encourage you to attend meetings even when the theme isn't necessarily your primary of expertise, because we have found that the conversations that happen in these meetings are as valuable as the results themselves, and that all along the way, everyone's learning new things about their food system, which really helps with networking and collaboration. This is where we're sort of using this food system role as part of our guide to think about who's not at the table. And this is what the current Plymouth County Community Advisory Board looks like based on who registered interest with us. And again, just the CAB is short for the Community Advisory Board, so you'll hear us using CAB frequently. As you can see, and this is entirely related to, the network of the partners involved. And again, we want to grow this out a little bit. And there are significant gaps. They're not even on here in retail, restaurants, catering, some of those core food system pieces. So if anyone knows anyone that they think might be interested in being involved, please reach out to myself or to Joanne. We would love to have more representation. Lastly, we've just got a few guidelines for these guidelines for these meetings. Everyone's contribution and participation in this is really important to us. We want to make sure we are treating everyone with respect, making sure that we're not, doing our best not to speak over people, and make sure people have the time that they need to contribute, and see each other as people first, job title second. And if we have any gripes with each other, because that's what community is about, that can be third, and we can have another meeting for that. Stay present. I know everyone's busy. These are longer meetings. There's a lot going on. So to the extent that you can stash your other tech that you're not using for the meeting, and only attend to them if it's urgent, amazing. Trust in the process that we've set out. The carrot process itself is a little bit onerous on Zoom, but it allows us to bring more people in. And it's also a process that's being evolved. So if you have any thoughts, comments, or feedback about how we're going through the carrot assessment, we would love to hear them. Be open to other perspectives, opinions, and conversation. To the extent that you can. Keeping your camera on and your mic unmuted allows us to have more sort of more natural interaction like we would have almost in person. But I totally understand there's dogs, there's kids, there's coworkers, there's other things going on. So that's to the extent you can, amazing. Turning off self-view if that's distracting, less checking of my own hair, more looking at other people the way we would if we were at a meeting. And then again, just minimizing multitasking. We'll try and make the most of the time that we have together to get through these answers. And if we can end the meetings early, amazing. Are there any questions there? Because that's basically the intro, and we're going to launch into theme 1 shortly, unless we have any initial questions. None? All right. Okay. So again, we're going to be looking at theme 1, which is natural resource management. I will read through, it'll be on the screen, and then I will read through the indicator. And both myself and Tess will be taking notes. You'll see my notes on screen. Tess is on a copy, just putting in some of her own notes. And we will be looking to answer each of the indicators. So just really just kind of shout out what you know about the question. If you have any questions about the question, let us know. Some of the wording is a little bit intricate. It takes a moment to kind of wrap our heads around it. And then these A, B, C, and D are the main themes today. And we will have 21 indicators. So unless I hear otherwise, I am going to stop sharing for a moment and get over to my indicator screen. And because both Tess and I are taking notes and I'll be sharing my screen, I will need you potentially to kind of shout out as opposed to raise hands because I won't be able to keep track of everyone and see everyone. So make sure we get to hear you. All right, any questions now? All right, we're good. So I'm going to share my screen and we will start our carrot. Okay, so theme 1, natural resource management, use and conservation, including protecting the ecosystem, preservation of farmland. Okay, so for indicator number 1, what does anyone know about in Plymouth County? Any programs, any policies, any practices that are protecting farmland from non-farm development?
So I would just add, Rita, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Farm, Oberry Street, Plymouth, is being utilized by the Sheriff's Department as an educational program, but that land along with 4-H is located in that same area that is under preservation and being utilized for farming.
Okay, and is that, do you know, is that, what type of preservation is that?
So it's community preservation funds were used, and the relationships with Plymouth County itself,
Mhm.
and it would actually require act of the legislature to change use.
Okay, fantastic.
So it's an agricultural easement,
Yes.
Is that
overlay.
so that's
Chapter
the,
61.
oh, sorry, say that again?
Is that chapter 61, Karen?
Frank, is that chapter 61?
It's actually not, it's a special
No.
legislative,
Yeah,
special legislative overview. It's actually
Yeah.
part of the deed.
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe chapter 61 could be a separate one.
Yes, it should be. This is Howard Randall. Yeah.
Okay, so I think, oh gosh, so the Plymouth County, is that the state level APR, Agricultural Preservation Restriction?
Chapter 61 is Massachusetts state law provides property tax relief to landowners who agree to manage their land for forestry, agriculture, or open space recreation. So there's chapter 61A, which is for agriculture, chapter 61, which is for forestry, and 61B, which is for open space and recreation.
Okay, tax relief for agriculture and forestry, and we
Yeah.
can look this up. I'll just make a couple forestry, and then 61B doesn't necessarily relate to farmland then.
Yeah.
Right,
and
yes,
and I would,
it's agriculture.
and to add to that, people who have chapter land are required to report every year on the activities. So, 61 is pretty passive with forestry, but 61A really it has to do with farming, whether it's food production or animal husbandry, and they are required to report those activities. And the tax collector's office can provide you with a list of properties that are in chapter 61.
Most of our communities as well, most municipalities, Rita, have an open space and recreation plan, and all the
Mhm.
Chapter 61 properties are listed in those plans.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
part of the requirement for developing those.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
great.
would say
Um,
we should probably mention CPA, Community Preservation Act, which provides a local source of funding to acquire open space, including farmland.
Many of the municipalities also have local ag boards.
Mhm.
So they might be, a relevant source of, local practices within the town.
And many are dedicated as right to farm communities,
Yep.
so that farming is not, it's pretty well protected under Chapter 40, but they go one step further to declare themselves a right to farm community.
Sorry, Howard, chapter 40, which is that?
The zoning act,
The zoning act, okay.
maybe it's 30, 40. It's been, I had 30 years in public life, but it's slowly leaving me, so.
Yeah,
Probably a good
absolutely.
thing, Howard.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail between these years. But in any event, the zoning act provides protection. You cannot unreasonably regulate farming activities under chapter.
And I believe with Chapter 61A, there's a right of first refusal as well. So if the land
Yes.
wants to be sold, then the municipality has the
Yeah.
right to buy it first before it
Yeah,
goes on the market.
if you change the use, if not, there's a rollback penalty, I believe, a look back of 7 years of back taxes that would be placed on the land. But oftentimes, if you move into some other protected class, it doesn't take effect.
There's also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rita.
You go ahead first. I'll ask my question after.
So there's also agricultural preservation restrictions, or APRs, that sometimes a community will see on farmland. So that's when a farm owner basically sells, somebody else can probably explain this better than I can, but essentially sells their right
to development,
right to development, so that it can only be farmed essentially, and they receive compensation for that.
Yeah, I'm a past chairman of the Wildlands Trust, and we have worked with a number of, we have close to, I think, 13 or 14,000 acres now that we either have a fee interest or a conservation restriction on. And we have worked and continue to work with a lot of folks with farmland to, and we use the APA program quite often, and there are funds available to help preserve farmland from that program.
There are, what might be interesting, Rita, to dig a little deeper into is there are some communities, for one, I'm working in Duxbury right now on an open space plan, and they're not particularly fond of the APR program for a multitude of different reasons. So that could be something to look further into as we progress.
Yeah, and I know, to that, Joanne, I know certain farmers with land
as well,
large tracts that have rejected. They've accepted the money, but rejected putting the property into Chapter 61 for the same, for the end game has consequences in both cases.
How would you word that, Joanne? Duxbury, there's just been some
I'd say hesitation with the APR program.
Yeah.
Just as a prompt, some of the conversation from the Bristol County Carrot was some farmers or a farmer in particular and a few other people felt 61A, because it was temporary. There was debate about whether was the intention of the 61A to protect farmland from non-farm development because it's temporary. how effective is it? I think here we're really looking for, again, what are the things that are there? And then the nuance of how effective they are will come later on. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And then I don't know if this has anything to do with Duxbury, but again, just as a sort of a thought nugget, one of the organizations we were talking to was saying that there's a lot of tension right now between the APRs and affordable housing, the 40B, and then because a lot of the farmland is prime for large scale developments. So
That's a really good point, Rita. I think from what we've seen in our municipalities, farmland that's not already protected in some way does often become solar panels or housing or some other form of development. I don't think any of our communities, certainly not the 17 and OCPC's region, I'm not sure about the rest of the county. I don't think any of our communities have any like rural development zoning overlays or any other kind of zoning protections that really try and minimize non-farm development on farmland. There are some of our communities that do have open space residential design, which tries to conserve open space when housing is developed. But that's probably the minority at this point.
I would say too, likewise with the cranberry industry, lots of pressures because of falling prices. In Plimpton, we have quite a few bogs, significant bogs, but I would say over half, if not more, now have solar arrays. Some are attempting to both grow cranberries and to have their cake and eat it too, with cranberry growing under the solars. But and there's continuing pressure with gravel removal in Plymouth County, and I'm sure elsewhere, to offset the losses in cranberry sales. Cranberry bog owners are using, they're using the pretense of cranberry growing to take down critical forest and farmlands to shore up their sales. So that is happening at too rapid a pace, quite frankly, and over center, I would say.
And maybe one other thing to add, Rita, is that I know at the state level, they're looking at clean energy and renewables legislation and policies and model bylaws and things. And one of the things that they're hoping to produce is some guidance around solar siting that would dissuade areas of farmland from being used for that sort of siting.
Okay.
The other policies.
Sorry, what's the term you're using with the solar, John?
Siting, solar siting.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Sorry.
To try to move it away from forest and farmland and onto rooftops or
disturbed areas,
other distressed areas or structure. And that's across the state. Those efforts now across the state.
Yeah. And then Molly, I think you had something to add there too.
Yeah, no, some of the other policies, they're not in place yet, but there's some legislation going forward, you know, at the state level to preserve the Topsfield Fairgrounds, for instance, and that's being pushed through Massachusetts Farm Bureau, but also the Mass Fairs Association. So it's not, you know, strictly farmland per se, but again, it's an agricultural resource, and that's having that specific site is, you know, trying to get that preserved right now.
Interesting. And sorry, it's different from, it's not an APR that they'd be using, it's a different tool.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But all of those fairs had their roots in agriculture. Certainly, Marshfield Fair, we used to participate there with vegetables and flowers and everything else, but it's a far lesser role, and I'm sure that's true for the county and 4-H programs.
Yep.
They've diminished across the county and the state.
And one thing I want to add, because I think that this is clearly just number one, which is one of the bigger ones. So they don't all usually, this does take a little bit longer because there's more there. But that the idea that it isn't just about preserving the farmland itself, but preserving those agricultural resources. I think that the carrot does capture that in other indicators. With that being said, as a work in process and progress, if there's ever an indicator or question that anyone feels is missing, let us know, because we are, again, evolving this carrot as we go and are happy to add indicators that feel relevant. So, okay, that's great for number one. Is there any other comments or thoughts on number one? What Tess and I will be doing as well is kind of cleaning this up, putting it into notes that's a little bit clearer for everyone to see, and putting up any backup information. In terms of source of information, it sounds like we wanted to find out more about 61A. I know APR state level, 61A, tax collectors, open space plans for each town. And then Howard, it sounds like Wildlands Trust would also have would have a program related to this, as well as have potentially some more information. That sounds good. And again, we can always come back to any of these. You can throw
Yeah.
things in the chat if we've already passed, moved on to other indicators. And again, if anything comes up in the next month that you're thinking about, please definitely send on to us.
Yeah, I would say there are other organizations other than Wildlands that operate in the region, and some of the other Audubon, Mass Audubon, and others.
Trustees have a few
And
properties, I think.
trustees of reservations, has large property holdings here in the state, in southeastern Mass in particular. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
And obviously the towns have acquired land through CPA funding for conservation
Mm-hmm.
and recreation. So they're another source of currently open space land that some of which could be farmed.
Excellent. Okay, so we can dig into those.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to move on to number two. Does anyone know of any policies, practices, or programs in Plymouth County that support water quality, water conservation, and watershed management? Joanne, this could be you.
I'm going to see if anybody else has anything to say.
Yeah,
I don't want to dominate.
yeah.
Bill, I know you're on here somewhere, Bill.
Yeah. It's somebody else pick it up.
The
So
North and South River Watershed Association, their
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
they're central. I mean, they're critical to our region on the work that they're doing.
Mhm.
And the Taunton River Watershed.
Yeah, Taunton River Watershed.
Herring
Joan-
Pond Watershed Association also.
Yes.
Sorry, Herring Pond,
River.
this is great.
Yeah,
Herring
Jones River.
Yeah.
Pond. Okay, Jones River,
Hmm. They're out of Kingston.
and then
And
there was
Taunton River.
one-
Taunton.
Taunton River Watershed Alliance, yep.
Is it Pond River?
Taunton.
Oh,
Taunton.
Taunton. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I am gonna have to work on my pronunciation for Plymouth County towns. I realize that.
We won't hold it against you, Rita.
Okay, so we've got North and South River Watershed Association, and some of these too, Joanne, I'll go back through with you to get if I've got like slight spelling errors,
Oh, yeah.
as long as we can identify what they are in review.
Yeah.
North and South River Watershed Association, Herring Pond Water Association, Jones River Watershed Association,
Yep.
and then Taunton River Watershed Association.
Alliance.
There's also Six
Yeah.
Ponds
Yeah,
Association
Six
as well.
Ponds in Plymouth, yes.
Yeah. I have there's also one
Watershed.
Ponset. I have a long list, Rita. I can send it to you afterwards.
Okay, that's
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, there's quite a few more.
Just
That
out
is-
There's a ton.
Watershed Association.
Yeah, there's a ton of people out there doing some good work.
Mhm,
Yeah. So there's quite
Right.
a bit. These are all nonprofit organizations
mhm.
doing quite a bit of work on watershed management. water conservation tends to be focused on residential use, not necessarily on working with agricultural users.
So
There are state programs that try and address agricultural water conservation and water quality. I'm not sure how active those are in our region, though.
And that's specific to agriculture.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, Water Management Act, I believe, is relevant here, right? So
Yes,
they would limit the
gotcha.
amount of water that could be withdrawn for
Drawn.
agriculture.
Yeah.
So we should probably include that.
I know in Old Colony's region, in our 17 municipalities, there's only one farm, I believe it's CNN Smith Farm, that has a registered well. All the others don't use enough to have registered wells. So we don't know how
Okay.
much they use.
Interesting. Only one farm in your coverage
In the OCPC's area, yeah. There
Yeah.
might be more in the
Yeah.
county, but we can look into that.
registered, and that's registered with the state as part of the Water
Mhm.
Management Act?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because they withdraw an X amount over, which is why
Right.
they have to register.
Joanne, we should mention the new group that's formed, the Old Colony Water District, and certainly the Central Plymouth County Water District.
Mhm.
Are those, what type of organizations are those?
Those are both government.
Okay.
Government, yes.
Yep.
Another is
On-
the North River. Is it the North River Association? It's a state similar to CPC-WDC. It's a state created organization of the I think the 7 towns that surround the North River, creating a management team.
So Frank, that's the North and South River Watershed Association,
Association.
and that was created under the legislative action.
Special Act, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, great. It's fantastic.
Well, I think they're actually separate. So the North and South River Watershed Association, isn't that Susan Wood and
That's
her team?
Sam.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Sam, right. But
Yep.
then there is a separate organization that is state created that manages the banks of the I think it's just the North River. It was created back in the 60s. I'll look that up and I'll throw it on the chat.
yeah, I'm looking at it now too. You can become a member. I'm just familiar with the North and South River Watershed as an association, and I know they do their own fundraising, but they do operate because of legislative creation. In fact, there's a bill now that was talking about potentially disbanding them, but I think that's dead. Thank God.
On water quality, Rita.
Yeah.
So there are some state programs that are working with agricultural users, mainly I think bog cranberry growers, on improving water quality, so reducing fertilizer use and that sort of thing. But the water that farmers use on their farms is typically not treated. So whatever's in the groundwater is going to be in the water that they use on their crops or, for their animals. And there are some efforts to try and address issues like PFAS at the state level. But again, because the farmers aren't treating their water, that still gets used on their land and their crops. So water quality, there's some issues there.
Yeah.
And
And
septic regulation is pretty weak in
Weak,
comparison to the problems that we're experiencing.
Yeah, I think safely, Joanne, you could add the whole PFAS emerging crisis
Yeah.
to Plymouth County.
Yeah,
It's-
there was a
it's-
big concern among the agricultural users that we interviewed for our water plan, our regional water plan, about water quality specifically and what that means for their food production.
that makes, I mean, I think that's being echoed all over from what, from what we're seeing and hearing.
Mhm.
And yeah, it feels like that is definitely emerging where there's not a lot on the ground yet, other than sort of a couple specific points, but we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, I know of large tracts of former agricultural land that may very well be heavily impacted by PFAS, PFOS, and past practices that brought those chemicals to these sites. So
Yeah.
anybody that's been accepting, Maine has had this problem as well. Anybody that has accepted night soil from various treatment plants have in effect invited a PFAS, PFOS problem. So the organic growers of Maine are thinking of tearing their hair out because of
Yeah.
past agricultural practice that encouraged the use of this material on agricultural land.
Exactly. Yeah, this is one we're going to be talking about for a while, I'd say.
So two things to add here. One would be to note the Wetlands Protection Act as well. So I believe there are exemptions for existing agricultural land, but if you wanted to create new agricultural land, you'd have to go through a permit under that act. So that's something to consider. The other thing is that looking at you're looking for practices as well. Common practice for or it's becoming more common to support water quality is to take bogs out of production and restore them. So I think you're going to see that trend, at least in our area, where you're going to have that reduction in agricultural land.
And there, yeah, that's a really interesting one to note. I feel this is just, when we look at ag land, especially in, say, Plymouth County or in the region, and we see that we're losing a lot of it, being able to capture that some of that cranberry agricultural land might be going into restoration, which is that, again, agricultural resource, among many other things. There are some, I think there was a really beautiful restoration in Plymouth. Was that a Mass Audubon one? Is that right?
Yeah, that's Audubon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a few here. Yeah.
Tidmarsh is one, and then Duxbury also has a restoration of a bog too.
Yeah, we have a few of those projects in the works here in the town of Plymouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that might be something to note. I mean, I think that is, we don't have to list them all off now, but I'm just noting there that, that would be essentially a program that, it's maybe not a cohesive program, but that definitely this bog restoration is a piece of that, of this indicator. So
Yeah.
we'll need to come back to that.
Yeah, the Buzzards Bay Coalition's working on several of them in Plymouth County too, Rita.
Okay, perfect.
They've been working with the Division of Ecological Restoration.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But they are going back to woodlands, aren't they? And not necessarily suitable for other types of agriculture.
Yeah, it's
Or are they, Bill?
It's nature-based solutions for water
Yeah.
quality restoration, habitat restoration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is another thing. And the governor's, she recently signed the Mass Ready Act. The Wetlands Protection Act is going to be altered there too, or at least the permitting process to make it more streamlined to address nature-based solutions, which should in turn help projects like that. Cranberry bog restoration,
Yes.
old wetlands, the whole bit. So
You said it was the Mass Ready Act?
yeah.
Okay.
I think she signed it the end of June.
Right. All right. I know, Joanne, you might have a lot more to add, but is there anyone else that would like to add any comments for this indicator?
Is it included in there about Department of Public Health? Like I know at least for Plymouth, Public Health does regular water quality testing, right?
And that's for residential, or is that public property?
So they typically wouldn't do testing. The DPW in each community is responsible for testing drinking water for residential and business use. But if you're on a private well, like a residential private well, then it's up to you as a private resident to test. And typically they're not testing for
Right.
everything.
A sale will typically trigger a test.
Mhm.
That's about the only time, I think. Or if they have suspicions, or neighbors come up with PFAS problems, then you see people testing, but it's not currently required.
The boards of health do, however, have a listing of private wells.
Mm.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. We'll head over to number 3, which is, does Plymouth County have any policies, practices, or programs that encourage the adoption of practices that promote animal welfare?
Plymouth, the town of Plymouth has a farm and livestock compact. I can put the link in the chat.
Yeah. Has a farm and livestock compact.
They're working on the rollout right now. So
Okay.
as far as I'm aware, it's been fully approved, but it hasn't been like communicated out to the people in the town through like the standard outreach channels. But yeah, the slide deck is in the chat.
Oh, excellent. Tess, can I ask you, or let me see if I can, I'm gonna grab that. Oh, yeah.
I've grabbed all the links in
Okay.
mine.
Perfect.
You know, most towns have animal inspection. And I would guess if there's a known farming activity that they're getting out to those people. If there are complaints, then they're getting out to private animal, horse and cattle owners and pig owners and the rest, but probably only if there's a complaint.
That's what we heard for the most part in Bristol County, that I believe the state has policy, and I have to state policy.
Yeah, state has
Yeah.
policy for raising certain farm livestock animals. They also have a handle on all of the horse and equine centers across the state. That's an annual license.
Annual license.
Yeah.
Once you have over a certain number of animals, I believe.
Mm.
No, this is, so now I'm sort of, so I think that there's Board of Health, and when there's a complaint, so they would, so that's more that regulatory, they come in when there's a complaint. So I know in Westport, this could be related to Right to Farm. Once you have more than, I think, 5 cows, you have to register for a permit. Don't know enough about that yet, but I'm not sure if that's related to just municipal policy, Right to Farm, but I don't know if that rings a bell for anyone.
Yeah, a lot of it I think is town-based.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
is,
obviously kennels are typically permitted.
well, you know what's funny is actually in Westport, if you have more than 5 dogs, you have to permit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
so
that's
yeah.
true in many towns. Yeah.
Okay. And is that, so that isn't related to Right to Farm or anything like that?
No,
No.
no.
Um,
It's in a general bylaw, most likely. That
okay,
any kennels are permitted in, let's say, an agricultural residential district. Beyond X number of animals, you have to have a special permit. Usually the zoning board of appeals perhaps would be the permit granting authority.
gotcha. Okay, anything else on that? No. Let's see.
We have 4-H that promotes animal husbandry.
Mm.
Is this something that would fall under each municipality's agricultural commission?
Yeah, the AgComs have the ability under the law to work with the Board of Health as advisors in advisory capacity to help promote sound agricultural practices. So if you have a right to farm bylaw and you've established an agricultural commission, then, you know, under the law, they work with the Board of Health in that capacity.
Yep, and the state also sets all the guidelines for animal health regulations, transportation of animals across state lines. you know,
Yeah.
s-
Yeah.
selling animals for any reason.
Yeah.
And then that's then also up to who would be enforcing that? Would that be state?
That's the state. Yep.
Okay.
And Molly, you mentioned, like, a, some kind of form you have to fill out every year?
If you have a horse stable, there's an annual license.
Okay, an annual license. And
Yeah.
are there any inspections? Does that happen with either equine or chickens, poultry, livestock?
I know it definitely happens with equine. I'm not sure how much on a regular basis it happens with other animals.
Okay, thank you. And who does the inspection? Is that
The-
Board of Health?
The state,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know what department?
Department of Agricultural Resources.
Resources. Yeah.
They also, the Department of Agricultural Resources specifically with poultry, will come out and do inspections and testing. And you have to be issued a Palorum certificate, which is basically saying you are a salmonella-free flock. So that again, if you're coming to certain fairs or public exhibits, if you have that certificate from the state, it's good for 1 year. The state is also obviously doing a lot of bird flu testing right now, or, you know, heard about it more recently in the past 2 years, probably. So they will come out and test your flock for bird flu as well.
Yep.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, number 4, are there any policies, practice, programs that keep food waste out of landfills in Plymouth County?
We have like pilot programs. Essentially, we partnered with Black Earth Compost to offer curbside composting in Red Brook and Pine Hills, so like a portion of the residential area in Plymouth, but we're working with the town to offer, or at least again, pilot like a system at the transfer station for composting.
The correctional facility in Plymouth takes food waste and we give it to a local pig farmer.
There
Okay.
are a lot of restaurants and breweries that also will give their food waste to pig farmers.
Yeah.
The Plymouth Agriculture Commission has on their to-do list to work on a spreadsheet or a list of local farms and local farms that will accept compost, whether it's from residential people or like from commercial facilities. So that's something that it's not done yet, but they're hoping to put together.
That will accept. And who was that again?
That's the Plymouth Agriculture Commission.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, it's quite a capital intensive. If you're taking in garbage, you have to probably have a large number of animals in order to support the cooking. You have to raise that to a certain temperature before you can feed it out. So it's capital intensive in that regard, and so that gives you some idea of the scale of animal husbandry taking place, large herds, typically. I think there's only one in Plymouth, isn't there? Or are there more? I know of one operating at that scale. Historically, that's how they did operate. Growing up, there were piggeries, it seemed, in every town, and most of the garbage went there.
Sorry, so Howard, you were saying there's just one pig farm operating in Plymouth?
That I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is operating at that scale, and they're probably the ones that are taking the prison material.
There used to be composting at some of the school cafeterias, but there was an issue in the past with pickup. So we've been talking to them about trying to restart something, but the issue really is like what's been said and not having places to take it to, or maybe there are places and we're just not able to connect the dots. So that's part of why the request has been put to the Ag Commission.
Interesting.
I
I
don't
know
know how
Rita-
relevant it is anymore, but you know, a lot of used oil from restaurants for frying and such has been used for, you know, biofuels and recycling.
Is that
Um,
happening locally?
I think so.
And is that happening sort of between two individuals, or is there any broader?
Mm,
Well, there
I
was,
know
but-
there's,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I know that there's companies that will come to your restaurant and recycle the oil.
Yeah.
I don't know what their names are at the moment. I can look them up
Yep.
for you.
It really started out as a do-it-yourself initiative with people like with Mercedes diesels and the rest that Ford diesel trucks that attempted to use waste oil, cooking oil.
I know
Right.
that there have been a couple of cases in our region where there was interest in land use for a larger scale composting business, but ultimately they never kind of materialized because of concerns around rodents and smells and all those other potential kind of nuisances. With food waste as well, there are several businesses, certainly in the region, I think, that donate what they have left over at the end of the day, either to a pantry or a shelter or some other place. I think Panera, if they have stuff left over at the end of the day, typically donate locally to some organization.
Mhm.
So there's a little bit of that going on a case by case basis.
Okay, right. Okay. I will move on to the next one. I just want to say we're not here to compare, but maybe we move through the Bristol County one so quickly because there's not as much going on in Bristol County. So we might learn a lot to bring back to them, but we'll just do the best we can. Okay, number 5. This one may or may not feel relevant because this may or may not be an issue for our farmers. So again, if it doesn't feel relevant, then you know we can just put an NA when we go to score. But the question is, are there any policies, practices, or programs that keeps agricultural waste out of landfills? What
Most large scale farms need to have a manure management program. I don't know enough about it to know what exactly that entails, but again, there's something in place. A lot of it, like Hornstra Farms, for instance, they have a manure management plan, and then they reuse all their manure for, hay and corn crops to feed the cows again.
So that's sort of what we heard for Bristol County as well, is that most of it is being reused on site.
Yep.
That this isn't really a problem where farmers are showing up at our landfills with ag waste.
No,
Correct.
I guess we'd consider leaves and wood chips and the rest not part of the agricultural stream.
I would say probably not. I think that's kind of, I see where we could, as in it can, helps make good compost, but I think this is more getting at what farmers are generating themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would say no, but again, that's important agricultural resource. I'll just make a note. Because we would ultimately, I think you would want to know where those sources are. I know
Yeah.
even for Frogfoot Farm, we're constantly trying to figure out where the wood chips.
Go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, number 6. We have policies, practices, or programs that support land back and land reparations for BIPOC farmers and Indigenous lands. And anyone who's not familiar with BIPOC, it's Black, Indigenous, people of color. This is one too. So far, no one, there is no specific policy or program in Bristol County. So this is one that might just be missing.
Yeah, nothing I can think of in Plymouth County. I know there are some federal resources and grants that were in place for those kinds of things, but you have to
Mhm.
meet, certain parameters, and I'm not aware of anything in Plymouth County that would be under that.
So we
And
do
just,
have,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say in Plymouth County, we have one state recognized tribe, the Herring Pond Wampanoag Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe.
Yeah.
They're now state recognized only just recently, but they're not federally recognized. They do own some land and aspire to own more, but it's not through any kind of policy or practice initiated by anybody else except themselves in terms of trying to fundraise and purchase it themselves.
Yeah, and there is now a Native American land trust made up of representatives from regional tribes. They too are looking to acquire land. I worked to help save much of the sisters' property on Route 80 in Kingston. The camp portion, the 38 acres of camp portion went to the Native American Land Trust. That's housed out of the Wampanoag tribe in Mashpee. They also have holdings that Wildlands work with them to protect sacred properties, ceremonial properties in Lakeville and Middleborough and Kingston.
Yeah. They did the old Chamar turkey farm in
Yes. Yep.
in Middleborough.
Yep. And the
That's called
and the-
Nemasket River Village now.
is it really?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Very interesting site, continuous occupation for 10,000 years or so.
Yeah.
And also one in Kingston, where the Opatinsky fields hope to extend into woodlands. There were burials found, and that was protected by Wildlands and the town from further development.
Rita, would 80 Makepeace have any information on that? Because Wareham is in Plymouth County. Do you think, or no?
Yeah.
They might.
Hey,
Yeah.
I know too, this isn't specific to land necessarily, but depending on what we're thinking about with agriculture and aquaculture, I know there is, if you prove that you're a member of a recognized tribe or your heritage from Native Americans, you are exempt from a lot of hunting and fishing requirements.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of, shellfishing, for instance, you don't have to get, commercial or residential permits.
Exempt from permit requirements related to.
Which is usually, from the specific town that you're looking to fish or hunt in.
Okay. Hunting and.
I know Middleborough and Wareham, Molly, that works with herring, and I think was it Bridal Shiner down in the Wareham River? There's an open period for about a month. Yeah, if you're indigenous, you can do that.
And I know with shellfish, you have to follow requirements on closure areas for pollution purposes and things like that. But everything else is sort of fair game if you have that
Right.
exemption.
Yeah.
Right. And the Native Land Trust is called the Native Land Conservancy.
Conservancy, yeah.
Native. So not the trust, it's the
Trust
conservancy.
land.
It's a native, yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I would say there's quite a bit of consternation amongst the native folks in Plymouth regarding Hedges Pond development in South Plymouth. There was a reservation area set aside by Plymouth years ago, maybe centuries ago, and that that land left the tribe's hands, but it's now being developed. There's the feeling that some of it may be sacred in the fact that it contains burials, but there's nothing to allow the due diligence in the bylaws to protect that property. There's no requirement that a phase 1 architectural survey be done, I don't believe, in any of the
Yeah.
Plymouth bylaws. I may be wrong in that, but nor are there I don't know that any town has really developed any significant bylaws that would protect Native American sites.
Interesting.
Hey, Rita, that land, the land conservancy is just the Native Land Conservancy.
Native land, thank you.
Mm.
Renee.
Yeah.
Native
Yeah.
Land Conservancy.
Conservancy,
Yeah, and I think they have an office in Mashpee, I believe, too.
yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds like one that we might come back to you, Howard, and look into that a bit more and
Yeah.
understand more of the
Yeah.
details to see how we might
Yeah, they
answer.
now own that 35-acre piece, so
Yeah.
we spent $750,000 taking down 15 buildings and now and tearing up blacktop and non-native species, but it's now in their hands. So.
Amazing. All right, well, that we'll definitely come back to that one to get a little more detail. Okay, I am going to move to number 7, which is part of the promoting soil health and conservation practices. So in Plymouth County, are there any specific policies, practices, or programs supporting cover crop adoption or continuation or other tillage practices that would be promoting soil health?
UMass Extension has a whole soil department.
That's
So
the
I don't,
Amherst.
yep, at the Amherst campus. I don't have anyone in my office locally who's an expert on that matter, but again, we field calls and put people in touch with those that have the expertise or need to come out and do a site assessment.
Perfect. So you provide that connection to the resources in.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's sort of.
And that kind of goes for the next several questions down
Right.
with crop rotation, crop diversification.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll put that into each one for 7 through 10, or is that, or would
Yep.
it be 7 through 9, 7 through 10?
Yes, 7 through 10.
And then are there any others that anyone
Yeah,
knows about?
I'd say, Joanna, we could certainly mention that the planting of drought resistant plants that came up in the water study, I think, and is also a focus that people begin to look to planting drought resistant.
And
crops.
who was driving? Where was that conversation?
So
Who's
that
on-
that's one of the sort of recommendations in the regional water plan is to promote the use of drought resistant plants in general, whether it's residential or otherwise.
to cut down on the watering,
Yeah.
the perceived need of watering. Yeah.
So
Another
There-
thing that we encourage is getting your soil tested so that you're not pre-treating with, fertilizers and chemicals that you might not necessarily need, but to just, again, depending on the crop that you're trying to grow or the area that you're in, to get that tested and then specifically address the issues.
and that's who's
That also is
pushing-
through we could do that through extension.
Okay.
I mean, people can get home soil testing kits too, through a lawn care center, even Home Depot, Lowe's, things like that.
I'd say as a counter to all of this, that there's a surprising number of lawn treatment businesses that have cropped up in southeastern Mass that are happy to come out and spray for everything from ticks to deer, and what impact that will have long term on the water supply is really it can be very devastating for other animals and the rest, but that's a practice that is probably going to need some level of regulation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Howard, and I think there's somewhere in here, maybe Tess, if you could make a note of that here, I think that probably would be a great note in one of the following indicators, or possibly an additional indicator, because that relationship, particularly we'll say in New England and in our area where farms and residential areas are very in close proximity, the impacts of how people are treating their lawns really does affect our agriculture. So we'll see if the carrot gets at that in another indicator. If not, I think that's something that we'll note and see, probably do need to incorporate that in some way.
There are definitely some farms in our region that do practice some of these things. So I know Langwater Farm near where I live does use cover crops, and they do rotate as well. I'm not sure about the diversification. I think they're less so on that and the windbreaks, but certainly the cover crops and rotations they do.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good point about the diversification. This is one, I'm gonna just italicize it. This came up a little bit in the Bristol County one where the carrot was developed in Indiana, and this feels like it's a little bit more relevant to large monocropping, sort of homogeneous monocrop large scale agriculture. It sounds like a lot of the farmers in our area are already diversifying. They just have more variety because that's the type of gardening for this type of farming for the size farm that we have. I think that crop diversification here, I think to me almost really does think it looks at drought resistance, climate resilience. That's kind of the next step is are farmers diversifying their crops in response to climate resilience, climate change, or changing weather patterns, and also possibly changing, tastes. So
I will say that farms like Langwater and Gary's Farm in Brockton, for example, they do quite a bit with heirlooms in that sense. So it's not just your standard varieties of stuff that they sell, but there's some heirlooms going on in there. So that's a little bit of diversification, I guess.
oops. Yep.
I mean, there's the Cranberry Experiment Station too in Wareham, which again is a UMass program, but again, they're doing all of the things that you've mentioned. I mean, specifically with cranberries, but again, pest management, the new species of cranberries, which ones grow, better, faster, stronger here in the Northeast.
Yep. Yeah, not so that one, so much this one. Yeah, that might be one we can see how, but the cranberry growers are a big piece of this. And again, that sounds like, trying to have farmers on this to the extent they can, or we might do a focus group with local farmers and we might look for a list. But definitely including a cranberry farmer here would probably help with some of these as well. Okay, so windbreaks, we've heard NRCS, which is a federal program, and it's limited and even more limited at the moment, but I don't know if there's anything more local that anyone knows of.
On the previous subject, I would say people are now growing peaches in Plimpton that would be unheard of prior to global warming. And I had one for breakfast. So that's an indicator of what's happening in terms of global warming. They're changing crops.
Water conservation measures. I've got the regional water plan. Is there anything else in Plymouth County that is specifically looking at water conservation?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
The only other thing I can think of is rain barrels and the North-South Watershed Association. They do a a program where you can buy them at a lower rate. And Plymouth, the town of Plymouth used to do it, but hasn't done it in about 4 or 5 years. But I think rain barrels are a great way to conserve water.
There's on the residential side and commercial industrial, there are pretty good state regulations on water using fixtures and fittings. But on the agricultural side of things, I don't know. I think it's something to find out. I've definitely seen farms in our region that are still using their standard overhead sprinkler systems in the middle of the day, as opposed to drip irrigation. So I think it's probably a mix. I have seen drip irrigation though as well. So
Yeah, that's one I know that, and I'll drop them in, but I do believe NRCS provides some of the funding for that drip irrigation, but it is an expense and a big switch. And what was that about the fittings that you were saying?
so like shower heads and faucets and toilets, there are pretty good regulations to maximize the efficiency of those, require it for sale.
And certainly on new construction, Joanne.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's now regulated under building code. You know, I would say clearly, we're seeing it in surrounding towns. With me, water bans are now in effect. So that's the other heavy hand that comes into play here during the summer months.
And that's town by town, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
And not necessarily driven by water availability. Sometimes it's just driven by regulatory requirements.
Requirements, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As preventive.
Mhm.
Great. Okay, we've got a few more minutes. I'm just going to push through. Number 12, are there any policies, practices, or programs in Plymouth County that incentivize or require preserving or restoring coastal wetlands?
Mhm.
And if there's none, that's okay. It's, again, this is the point of it, the gaps and opportunities.
I mean, a lot of towns, again, if you have, again, it's probably in the building code or maybe conservation commissions within each town.
Yeah, would deny permits in those zones, or highly regulate them.
No, sorry, you said that would be Board of Health or Department of Health, yeah.
Yeah.
No conservation commissions, right?
State also has a coastal zone management department that has regulations. And I would also say, someone mentioned Buzzards Bay before, Buzzards Bay Association.
Yeah.
They have a lot of grants, and over the years have gotten state and federal funding to preserve coastal wetlands.
Yeah, the Buzzards Bay Coalition, you're right. They've been doing a lot of great work buying up land like that, Michael. And also it'd be the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Board of Health, because it's going to depend on, siting wastewater systems in the area.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management too.
Yeah.
CZM.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bunch of stuff. But it's all working together and realizing what you have in your regulations.
Yeah.
Well,
and I would say conservation entities like Wildlands have facilitated a number of, and the town of Plymouth and CPA in particular has saved a lot of coastal wetlands, Duxbury, Marshfield, Plymouth.
So EPA has a program, Southern New England program, which actually Congressman Keating was one of the founders of it. And it's basically a funding program for estuaries and wetlands. And it still exists. They actually put an RFP out this year. So that's been going probably for like 8 or 9 years. Yeah. That's the source of a lot of those grants that Buzzards Bay Coalition and other groups have benefited from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the SNP program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Southern, yeah, it's called SNP, Rita. SNEP, Southern New England Program.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is that where Buzzards Bay is getting some of their funding? Like,
Yeah.
is that?
They've
Yeah,
gotten
I mean,
some-
I think they get a lot of funding from different programs, but SNP is a big one.
Yeah.
Okay,
SNP.
interesting.
Yeah, the regional planning agencies have gotten SNP funding too.
Yep.
Mm.
And Howard, we worked with the Wildlands Trust through one of our programs. You actually got some land down on with the Palmer River, right?
Yeah.
It's a tidal coastal river, and
Yeah.
Wildlands Trust helped us lock up some land along the coastal river that helped prevent flooding and the whole bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
The trustees of the reservation too. I know they have World's End in Hingham,
Yeah.
maybe
Yep.
some other sites.
Mass Audubon too, in the coastal preserves, they've done some great stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
They used a SNP grant. It was multi-town to actually buy some land in Mattapoisett. And I think recently it was Rehoboth. No, excuse me. Rochester, Mattapoisett, Acushnet. There's a few towns down there. Anyways, it was done through the, no, not Rehoboth. I'm sorry. It's Rochester. But it was done through the Buzzards Bay Coalition to help preserve watershed land and water supply land.
Yeah.
I can get you some information on that. No problem.
I'll ask for the details so that my
Yeah, because it could go on for a long time.
Yeah. No, you're talking faster than I can type, and there's a lot of information. So, okay. On that one though, anything else high level that we've missed? And then again, I can always come back to people for details. We're good? Okay. Oh, well, we're at time. So we got through we just got through fewer than I thought we would, but that is amazing because it means that there's a lot of resources and again, a wealth of knowledge and information in this group. What we'll do is we will plan to continue theme 1 in the next meeting. So we'll just keep plowing through in order. So it'll be essentially 13 through 21 will be the goal for the next meeting.
Will we have access to that so we can be thinking about it and maybe speed it up next time?
Yeah, as we're going to be working on putting together just a little bit of a guide where a lot of that introductory information that we shared at the start of the meeting will be in the guide so that we can kind of slim down the introductory part, but also make sure, because we will most likely have new people coming into each meeting, make sure that everyone can sort of understand the purpose of the meeting and catch up. So they'll have that backup guide. And then we will be making sure that you have the agenda with the indicators listed out prior to the meeting so that you can be thinking about them before. And then I'll work with Joanne to make sure that we have all of this available so that you can see what's been entered, as well as, again, maybe have a link to a Google form for this theme so that you can add things, again, when you're thinking about them without having to wait till the next meeting, and we can capture that.
Yeah.
So there'll be a couple different ways that we can do that. So, so I will stop sharing there and just want to say a massive thank you to everyone. This is really fantastic. And again, I know it feels slow. And I think if we describe to people like, hey, we're going to sit together for an hour and a half and stare at a spreadsheet together, I hope it's not as painful as that sounds. This will all kind of coalesce and aggregate into some really interesting information and hopefully some visuals about what exists in Plymouth County. So I really appreciate it.
I put something in the chat, which we don't talk about, but I just want to make sure we're collecting everything that was chatted.
Yeah, the chat will be part of the record as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, and I wasn't able to follow the chat, but I know Tess has, and again, it'll be captured. So really appreciate everything that's been added in there. So that's all I've got, and we'll see you again in a month, and we'll send out information prior to the meeting about the indicators we'll be talking about.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rita.
Yeah,
Great, take care.
Great
great
job.
Bye.
format. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
yeah.